Hey, this is Brent, and I needed to do a little computer upgrade to get this thing not going really slow. It has a standard hard drive in it. I think it's 7,200 RPM. I bought this thing 5 years ago, so I'm not really sure exactly if it's 5,400 or 7,200, but either way, to today's standards, it's pretty slow. So I'm going to do a quick swap out of the hard drive. I'm actually going to leave it. This thing has a slot for 2 hard drives, so I'm going to add an SSD for the primary drive and then the 750 gig mystery drive as the data. As you can see, this thing has seen better days, but it was pretty kicking when I bought it 5 years ago. So this particular machine has a removable battery. Anytime you open up a laptop and start working in it, if you have a removable battery, you want it out. Also, you don't want it plugged into power. I actually opened this thing up while it was on, and there was some pretty good static coming out of this compartment. So there's the battery. That's a pretty big battery. Not really, but that's probably about the size of the batteries in gaming laptops these days anyway. They're just not removable like that. So now that the battery's out, no power is getting anywhere, we're safe to move in. This particular one has one screw and then a whole bunch of little clips under this spot here. So when we open up this little guy, there's a little Phillips head screw. We're gonna unscrew that little Phillips head screw. That's mostly there just so you don't accidentally pry it open, because that happens. I guess people accidentally pry open these clips. And it's acting a little funny. It says, like I mentioned, a 5-year-old machine. Ooh, we might be stripping that. Let's see if we can get some of these things off now that we're at this point here. It's actually a little easier on this side, but this side's giving me some trouble with the screw, which is really funny because I just took this thing apart the other night to see what I could do under here. Maybe the screw is out. Okay, maybe I was just feeling the screw spinning. So there's clips all the way around, and you can see here on this model, which was, again, 5 years old, you have your access to your RAM. That is a single 12 gig module there. Actually that says 4, so there might be some stacks. I didn't look too closely into this, and it was dark when I was looking. I guess you could add another 4. That says 4 gigabytes. I guess there's some other memory somewhere, maybe underneath. But right here is what we're really interested in. These are the hard drive bays. This is the empty one. This is the currently used one. I'm going to move this one here because the system boots to this one first. And I'm going to install the solid state drive there. So 3 little bitty Phillips head screws. That I'm going to end up stripping, I guess. Let me try a smaller screwdriver. I promise this all worked a lot better the other night, for some reason in the dark. Nope, it definitely likes this one. Let me try this one first. Yeah, that one must just be stubborn. Screw number 2 and bay 1's out. Screw number 3 might put a little damper on my plans tonight. When you have a stubborn Phillips head, you find a closely fit flathead. That might be a little big. Let's go a little smaller. And there we have it. You don't want to strip the screw, because if you completely strip it, you're not going to get it out, except for drilling it, or if you have a screw tap or something like that. You don't want to be doing that on a laptop. So this lifts up supposedly like this, but it needs to unseat. This is a SATA 3 connection, so you have to actually unseat this thing, which takes a little force, as you can see. So we're forcing it. Now we're going to keep this case if it will let us. Yeah, I think the screws will match. Because this case has a little more extra cushion, as you can see, because this is a spinning drive. I'm not worried about cushion on the solid state drive because, as the name infers, it is solid state. It's not going to spin. So let me get the Phillips head back out because I did remove these screws the other night with no problem with this specific Phillips head screwdriver. And we're going to move this little thing over to this side with the solid state. This is something pretty much anyone can do. This isn't anything over the top or crazy. The RAM is something anyone can do too if you can access it. I have another computer that I might tear down at some point in the future because I killed it. I need to find out what happened. So the solid state I picked up. I know people are gonna whine, that's not a Samsung or that's not a whatever. Yep, it's a pretty cheap one, but I'm not going to be using this laptop as my main laptop, at least not for long. I'm still waiting on the laptop that I'll be using for the semester to be in. So let me see. What doesn't make sense to me is how this was seated over there. So I just want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. Yeah, that's what I thought. I put it in backwards the other night. So there are technically screws that you would put in on this solid state drive to get it to stay there. I don't have those screws right now, so we're going to do a little quick rig job. Luckily, there's plenty of padding here to make sure this drive doesn't go anywhere. So we're going to slide it in. Normally there's some screws here on the mounting thing. I do not have those currently, and when I get some, I'll go back in here and attach them. But for now, this should secure the drive, and I'm not going to jostle this thing around too much in the meantime. And there's that. So this one, we're just going to plug in here. I have actually not wiped this one yet. This was my main drive. It's got my Windows install. I have a jump drive with Windows on it. In order to do that, you can download a Windows recovery tool that will allow you to create a USB media. It says that you need an 8 gig. You really need a 16 or bigger because 8 gigs, slide that connection in there, 8 gigs is only going to get you so far with that. Because of how everything formats, you know what, I might have to use these in the right place. This isn't going in the way it should. This is a, in case you're wondering, Western Digital Black. That's not bad. That's not a bad hard drive. It's going to be my data drive though. These little connections are not lining up the way they should, which is interesting because I thought these little bays were kind of interchangeable. It seems like the same part, but it even says Con L, but I'm not getting, maybe I'm just not getting it in there all the way. No, we're off on the screws, which makes no sense because this one's not off on the screws. It must not be going all the way in. Let's revisit one more time and make sure we're not breaking our drive. Everything looks good here. It's oriented the right way. Check something. Troubleshooting drives. I'm just wondering why. Just want to make sure, yep, the connections are identical. Just want to make sure they didn't have some type of special connection over here. This is the great thing about doing uncut videos, is you see all the problems. So you know what I'm going to actually do too, while I have this back out real quick. I'm going to take out a single screw and go ahead and fix that one before we close this up. I'm going to take it out of the back side just to use to secure my solid state because it does lean down a little bit. I'm not a big fan of that. So let's try this again. I'm pretty sure it's going to work and it's going to line up. Oh, it went a little farther that time. Still not connected. I think it went a little farther. I think it just needs to fit in. That sucker is not going, so we might have to redo the whole chassis for some reason. Well, let's just trade chassis. Since we're already in here, why not? We know that other chassis will fit here. Don't want to mix those little screws up. What I could do is just go into BIOS and tell it to boot from this other drive. But in case there's some type of performance thing or something like that, I don't know too much about this particular computer. I'm sure someone's going to say, there's no performance differences in hard drive bays. And you'd be correct, as long as you don't have PCI Express solid state ports in your motherboard on a laptop. Okay. I'm going to pop this Western Digital out of this. Come on, Western Digital. Okay. We're going to pop Western Digital into this one and we're going to run it first. Oh, you know what it was? It is placement. So if you look here, there are two different screw points. So the Western Digital is sitting farther back, or farther forward, I should say, and it needs to sit back. So we're going to actually reinstall these little screws in the farther back hole. That should help us out greatly. I think these are magnetic. Let's see. The other ones were. And what I'm going to actually do, when you're low on screws, you improvise a little bit. Never do this on a motherboard. I'm using screws to make sure different points are, oh, it's raining. Using these screws in the different points just to make sure the hard drive is anchored in well. And I'm short on screws. I've tried to do this before on an ATX board. Didn't work at all. So now we can actually drop this in. Before, if you notice, I was having to angle it a little bit to get it to go underneath, which I'm still kind of having to angle it a little bit, but when I slide it in, oh, is it still not going to lock? What is not letting this thing lock in? All right, we took it back. It still didn't want to lock. Let me try it one more time. I just want to make sure if the connection is not being stubborn. I still saw part of that connection sticking out on this side. It should be flush or close to flush. Nope. We're going to have to trade chassis. So back to plan, what was that, B? Back to plan B. This is going to be the longest part of this video, is trying to make this hard drive fit. Or I could have just made it easy and told it from BIOS to boot over here. That might be what I do if this doesn't work. I kind of liked the hard drive, this hard drive being in this chassis that has a little more cushion just because it's going to have to be moving, but it probably doesn't matter that much. So this is the chassis that we know is going to fit over here. Let's do a little mock. I'm only going to put one screw in. I'm just going to eyeball it and make sure it's going to actually go. No, I need to put the other one in. It's way too loose. But just the one. These screws like to stick to your finger. And this magnetic screwdriver. Okay, so this chassis was in this side. If this doesn't work, then we're going to boot from this side. It's just what we're going to do. Cross our fingers, and it might just be the shape of the drive. You know what? We're just going to boot from this side. My wife, who is filming, just face palmed. I'm going to put it back in the original thing whole lot of unscrewing and screwing. Probably what I should have done in the first place. I just like to have the main drive back in the main spot. Maybe it's my OCD. There's probably no reason to make that the case. So let's put our friend back where we got him, which was over here. Might be the position of that chassis too, but I'm not playing with it anymore. I don't remember if we were forward or backward. These things look the same size. I'm gonna put it back though. My friend, the Western Digital black hard drive. It's a pretty good hard drive. That's one thing that I like about ASUS is in certain aspects, they definitely don't gyp you. This model gyps you in the screen. The color accuracy on the screen for this laptop is atrocious. But it has a quad-core hyper-threading i7, which is pretty awesome. It's the 3000 series. I can't remember the exact term. And it supported up to 1600 megahertz RAM, which at the time was pretty kicking. All right, we're putting you back where you were, Western Digital. Look at that, it fits perfectly. No clue why, no clue why. This is the great thing about computers, is sometimes you have no idea why that is the case when it comes to fitting this stuff. It reminds me of when I put things together for a access control company. Sometimes you had no idea why that motor wouldn't work, or that bolt didn't fit there when it was cut for it. And this little 11 or 1200 at the time dollar laptop, I have no idea why that chassis won't fit over here, or that hard drive won't fit over here with either chassis. So we could have made this video a lot shorter by just throwing it over here and not going through all this, but someone out there might run into this and realize that they just need to go into BIOS and tell it to boot from the other drive primarily. We're going to actually go into BIOS and tell it to boot from the USB drive when we get this thing fired up, because that's where our recovery is. If you wanted to use the main drive, this drive as your main drive, you could, but it defeats the purpose of the solid state. The OS should be on the solid state so that you get faster boot times and all of that magnificent stuff. I might have had it backwards too, but I don't think so. So here's this chassis. My dog just heard something outside. You probably hear all kinds of background noise. This is my dining room kitchen area. So we got rain, you might hear a puppy whine. You might hear my German Shepherd freak out about something outside. You might hear one of my kids start screaming because they're in bed. They should be asleep, but if you know 1 and 2 year olds, you know that that is not where they stay all the time. All right, moment of truth. Will this hard drive fit over here in this bay as well as it fit in that bay? I'm not liking this. I think this is backwards. That's my theory right now, my working theory. When I pulled this out, I did notice that this was on this side, but that's not really, doesn't make sense because that's how you pull this drive out. But I think they made a little slight error in the manufacturing. So I could switch these drives back around. I don't know that anyone wants to watch me do that, but I really want to do this the right way. So I really want to do that. Sorry. So for this one, I gotta switch it backwards because that makes sense. Thanks, ASUS. They really do a lot better now. Not only do they have some kick butt parts, they have kick butt screens. The one I'll be getting has 144 hertz screen. I'm gonna go ahead and set this the way it needs to be because I don't want to play with it anymore. But I'll be getting the Strix, and it's not the Hero or the whatever the other one's called. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. It's just a Strix. That's literally all it says. But it's got the 1070 graphics card. It's not the Max-Q version it's the actual 1070, which it might be the version that has more shaders but a lower clock speed. I'm not 100% sure on that. Haven't found that out yet, but either way, it's going to be pretty awesome. All right. So really quickly, and I don't know, what kind of scares me is I don't know which screw I almost stripped. I think it's in that stack. My wife is shaking her head at me. She's like, is he seriously going to switch this again? I am seriously going to switch this again, love, because I know what I did wrong. Or am I going to switch it again? I'm not going to switch it again. You think I should switch it again? I think we're close enough that we just call it and we'll leave it, and I'll change it in BIOS. I'm just going to change it in BIOS. I think my wife might blow a gasket if I spend another 10 minutes trying to troubleshoot this issue that has a very, very easy answer, which is, see, I even wanted to put it in backwards again, but it's really the right way. Easy answer is just go with it. Just go with it. Well, nose itching. All right, so this is the screw I almost stripped. So I'm gonna put that in last. I don't want any more surprises here, so let's just work. That one wants to strip. Maybe they were using cheap screws back then too. One thing ASUS does, or Asus, however you want to pronounce it, is they definitely bring good value, but sometimes I wonder if it's cheap parts somewhere to bring that good value, like these screws. They definitely didn't skimp out on the hard drive on this computer, but I really don't like how easy these screws try to strip. But I can't complain too much because this thing actually works versus my MSI, which I need to open up and see why it doesn't work. It had all kinds of other problems prior to not working, like not wanting to charge, and now it really didn't want to charge, but I think I broke the charger, and I want to see if that's soldered on. Okay, putting this in with the flat head is going to suck. Taking it out, it's not a big problem, but putting it in with the resistance, it's going to be terrible. Just got to get it started. There we go. So hopefully nothing happens when I put this thing back together. It'll be smooth sailing. Excuse me. So there it is. Both hard drives are in. All these little snappies go back in, all the little clips. And then this crazy screw that wanted to mess with me earlier. Oh, there's a clip not going in right there. Or is that this crazy screw that's messing with me? I'm pretty sure it's a clip. See what happens when I tighten down the screw. Just hope the screw doesn't try to strip on me like every other screw. I mean, I think that thing is bound somehow. Let's see if it'll grab anything. There we go. Okay. There it is. So now you want, of course, to put your battery back in. Can't start your laptop without it. And this battery, I haven't had to take it out in a while. It just snaps in like that. Now when you start it up, if you let it go to boot, it's just going to boot up like normal because we didn't trade the drive. But if we hold F2, it should take us to BIOS. If we plug in our drive that has our Windows install on it, we install it on the other drive and format the other drive to be just data. So that part I won't take you through as much, just because that's pretty simple. Usually you can look that up and get a step-by-step on YouTube. Hey, this is a YouTube video, but this is pretty simple on this part, and I don't have a good way of showing you this kind of crappy screen on that process. But anyway, that was changing out or adding hard drives to a laptop. Not all laptops have that little bay that has everything in it. Some of them you have to take the entire bottom off. Some of them it's near impossible, and some of them you can't even access most of those parts. So your mileage will vary on what you need, but that's basically how you add a hard drive into the system. And then of course you boot Windows to it and you're good to go. I'll catch you later. Have a good night, guys.